Thank you, Ginger. Thank you, and thank you to your sons, Aaron, because the violin always touches my heart. Gosh, it does. I could feel it in my heart right away, so thank you. Great to be here today. I'm glad you made it. A little snowy out there today. Today is our Burning Bowl service, and so instead of doing the meditation, which we usually do now, we're going to start with our little lesson here on letting go, and what do you mean by letting go? And so we're going to start with that, and then we'll go into the meditation. So I don't know how many of you were here for our Christmas Eve service. If you remember at the end, we all held up that candle, and that candle represented the light, and that light of Christ that is within each and every one of us. And that light is bright, and that light is love, is abundance, infinite possibilities. It's grace, it's peace, it's speaking from the heart. Now, if you're not feeling that all the time, then we have some work to burn off. We've got some stuff that we are carrying, that some old beliefs, some anger, some resentments that we're holding, that kind of cloud over that Christ presence. And then we can become a little more reactive. So today is our chance that we get to burn off some of those things that we've been holding on to. And not just momentary anger or a resentment, but things that we're clinging to, that we're holding on to, that cloud our vision. So the first thing that came to mind is one of our 12 powers. I thought of what power, these are the 12 powers that Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, gave to 12 parts of our body, 12 parts of our body. And he said that if we work and learn how to work these powers, we can open up to that Christ consciousness. So when we talk about letting go, which power, this is a quiz, which power are we thinking of? Yes, all right, A+. So the power of elimination is the color is russet, and I think of as almost the color of a flame, that burnt orange color. And the power is located in the lower belly, and you can see that's our elimination organs. So if you want to meditate, that's an area where you can meditate on. The body would not be healthy and clean and vibrant if we didn't have that gift of elimination. Everything we eat goes through the body. Everything we drink goes through the body. Our immune system is working to release viruses and bacteria. Our breathing, we breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. I think that's a car that does the monoxide. You may have some of that in there, but it releases stuff. And so the body is always in this cleansing mode. And I've said this before on the platform here. The body loves to be clean and healthy. It's always wanting to be clean and healthy. One thing we tend to forget about is the mind. The mind has a lot of stuff that we keep, that old stuff that we're holding on to, old beliefs that we're not even conscious of. We kind of forget what we're not even conscious of what we're thinking about. One thing quick that comes to mind is I thought I didn't like cats. And I said to myself, this is way back, and I grew up thinking, I don't like cats. The cats, they jump on the counter and everything. Well, I got divorced, and one of my friends gave me a cat, cute little kitten. And you know what? I love cats. I mean, cats are cute, and they were fun and bouncy, and it was just, and I realized in that moment, that was my mother's belief, not mine. And then I started to say to myself, how many beliefs am I carrying that are my mother's or my father's or society's? Am I really checking in with these beliefs? And you know what's really interesting when I got that cat? Guess who really loved the cat? My mother. I think she didn't realize that she loved cats. So really checking in with these beliefs. David Owen Ritz, our prosperity teacher, we teach that class, Prosperity, 7 Keys to the Kingdom. And one of those keys is key number 4. And that's decluttering your home, your car, your office, going around into the attic, into the basement, going into the junk drawer where we tend to things start to accumulate. And if you notice, stuff does accumulate. I mean, you open up the closet, it's getting more and more stuff, So David says, go in, take all the stuff that you're not using, you're not sitting on, that you are not wearing. Maybe it doesn't fit, maybe it's out of style. So this is the time to either recycle it, give it away, sell it, whatever you do, and let it circulate. So again, that law of circulation coming in. Well, the next step is key number 5 is forgiveness. And he talks about now is the time to clean out the mind. And I love the way he does it in that order because it's easy to see the physical stuff. It's heavy, it takes up energy. And I don't know about you, you walk into a room and you're like, oh, I got to do that, And we keep these little things lingering. And that's why it's nice to get away sometimes so you don't see your stuff and see all the stuff you have to do, vacuuming and so forth. So he talks about forgiveness. Now is the time to clean out your mind. What are you holding on to? I am working on Lessons in Truth. I'm doing that book in 2 weeks or so. And Lessons in Truth is one of our tried and true unity books. If you're going to be on the board, that's a book that you need to do the book study, read the book. And one of those chapters is on denials. And denials is, again, denying the power. Not that we have these beliefs, not that we don't have them in our consciousness or in our space. We're not denying that. We're denying that they have power over our mind. And we have the power, and that's another power actually, the power of dominion, the power to choose what we're thinking about. We can choose. If I told you to think of a pink elephant right now, you could think of a pink elephant. So it's good, I think, of principle number 4, principle number 3, thoughts, feelings, vision, imagery, held in mind, produce after their kind. So again, to be conscious of what we're thinking about and holding in our consciousness produces after their kind. And denial is a sweeping out. When I talk about letting go, it's an interesting thing because if you don't think about it, you kind of say, well, what does that mean to let go? What do you mean letting go of a belief or so forth? And what it means is that we're not denying that it's there. We're saying, okay, I want to get rid of this resentment. So I am willing to release that resentment. I am not going to give it energy anymore. I am not going to give it the power over my thoughts. And then, of course, after the denials comes the affirmation. We affirm the truth. Because denials create a vacuum. When we clean out the closet, we create like a vacuum. There's space. And sometimes it's easy to start filling that up again, but at least let's fill it up with something that we really need or that works for us or that fits us. So it's just turning away from that thought that's holding us down. When I started coming up on this platform, I always laugh when I see Dane because I love his classes because he taught me, I don't want to get up here. When I'm sitting there, to get over here, that's the hardest part. It's like, oh. But he says, do it, just do it. And I keep thinking of that every time, to just do it. Just start getting up here and just start talking, I had a reason for all that. There was a good reason for that. Okay, so it was very interesting. I've been holding this topic for the last 2 weeks in my consciousness. So when I do a talk, Reverend Pat gives me the topic, and about 2 weeks before, I start thinking of, what's going to come up. Sometimes when I'm walking, I get an idea. Sometimes when I'm doing yoga, I get an idea, or something happens in my life. Well, an interesting thing happened probably about a week and a half ago. My sister called me, and she's my younger sister. She lives in New Jersey. I don't talk to her a lot. We have a relationship that is interesting. That's a good word for it. Well, let's just say, I guess I didn't want to admit it, but I'm really holding a resentment of the way she lives. she tends to like her alcohol. And sometimes she can call and then she can get into this whole guilt stuff. And then I'm like, oh boy, So sometimes I don't even want to answer the phone. But she called. And I don't know what happened, but I answered the phone. And it was almost as soon as I answered the phone, I dropped the resentment. And I just felt present. And I said, I'm just going to listen. I'm just going to listen. And she started talking. And I don't even know if I like calling the black sheep of the family, but let's just say the rest of the siblings have a hard time conversing with her. She can be, so forth. So I just really started to listen to her. And I almost felt like this grace coming up, like a present moment, just this grace coming up. And I felt like I could listen to her without judgment, because I think that's what I did before. I would be judging her. But I could listen to what she was saying. I heard sadness. She lost her husband about 1.5 years ago, and she's lonely. She's very lonely. And this compassion came up and this empathy came up, and I realized that I was listening to her, and it felt like a whole different conversation. I felt like I love her, I do. And I felt like we had a really good conversation. She was so appreciative that I could listen to her and understand, and we hung up. When I got off that phone, I realized that's what it felt like to drop. I'm not saying that they're going to be that easy to drop. I don't know why this happened to me in this moment, maybe because I was consciously really holding this in my consciousness of letting go. She called me again Christmas Day, and it was gone. And I just had a conversation. No. Gone in a good way. I didn't hold the... It was gone. She's crazy. No, I kept it off. When I answered the phone, I kept it off. So it changed my relationship. And what I realize is, it doesn't mean I agree with everything or so forth. I actually think I was holding that resentment because it made me feel better than her. And that was really hard to say out loud, that I felt like I had it all together and, she was kind of beneath me. And that was really humbling in that moment. And I know that when God comes through, God is neutral, God is grace. There is no better than, there is no less than. And what she needs in her life is her lessons. And that is my greatest lesson, is learning how not to tell people how to live. There's my husband. And what really helps me, I love timelines. And I'll say to myself, okay, for 1 week, don't tell him what to do. Just for 1 week. See what it feels like, And when I'm always amazed that happens when you give up one of these things that you're holding on to, what comes up is all this time I have, all this energy I have for myself, and also the awareness of it's so easy to look at him, but there might be a few things I need to work on. Why am I so worked up on trying to get him to live the way I'm living, So those are lessons here. So today we're doing the burning bowl. This burning bowl is going to represent us letting go of negative thinking, beliefs, so forth. When you take that piece of paper and you put it into the flame, that is going to represent, I'm willing to think differently. I'm willing to think anew. The fire, when you see that fire, it's not destruction. Fire is just transformation. You're willing to change. You're not destroying, you're willing to transform from within. The ritual itself is saying, I am no longer giving my energy and time to those negative thoughts, beliefs, and I am opening the way for that Christ consciousness. opening up to that light. So when you feel that light I talked about at the beginning, that light is that Christ. That light is the empathy that will come up. It's hard to trust that it will come up when we give up these things. Sometimes we hold on. As a massage therapist, it's really interesting. When we hold on to all these negative thoughts and feelings, they go in the body. They get little knots and tension. And these knots and tension, again, the energy can't flow through the body. I'll be massaging somebody and they'll say, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know I was tight there." Well, because we're so used to it now. We're so used to holding it in our consciousness. We're so used to holding it in our bodies. And then when we start to get sluggish or not a lot of energy, we're wondering why. Well, the body, it needs to flow. And this stuff, blocks us. Now, it doesn't mean we have to do this just at the end of the year. This can happen all year long. So I'd advise, I'm just going to give you this, since I love to tell you what to do. I'm just going to advise, I remember 5 years ago writing books of paper and streams of how much stuff I wanted to get rid of. Try one or two, really, because one or two is a challenge enough, And when you kind of get those one or two, you can do it in March, you can do it in February, you can do a whole little service on yourself or just a commitment. So I'm excited to do the burning bowl today with you, and I'm going to hand it over to Reverend Pat to do our prayer and meditation.
Thank you.